Have you ever thought about a legend that Hollywood has almost forgotten? A man who not only changed the way we view cinema, but also quietly shaped an entire generation of actors without ever seeking attention. A person with extraordinary talent, yet chose to stay hidden from the spotlight. Today, we're diving into a lesser-known story about Gene Hackman, one of Hollywood's greatest icons. You'll hear exclusive revelations from Francis Ford Coppola, the legendary director behind The Godfather. Hackman's humility and profound approach to his work not only changed the movies, but also reshaped the way acting is done. Get ready, because you'll uncover secrets that Hollywood itself might not want you to know. If you find this content interesting, drop a 1 in the comments below. Otherwise, leave a 0 and share your thoughts on the video. Legendary collaboration. You know, there are movies that make you think long after you've seen them, roles that haunt your mind, scenes that keep replaying in your head, teasing you to spot the details you may have missed. And The Conversation by Francis Ford Coppola is exactly the kind of movie. If you haven't seen it, frankly, you're missing out on one of the greatest hidden gems in cinema. It became a legend thanks to a man named Gene Hackman. But here's what's really interesting. After decades of silence, Coppola finally opened up about working with Hackman, revealing behind-the-scenes truths that we've all been dying to hear. Honestly, for a movie lover like me, this is gold. And trust me, this isn't just celebrity gossip, it's truly captivating stories. Let's rewind a bit to the early 1970s. Coppola had already made a massive success with The Godfather, a film that was clearly one of the biggest blockbusters Hollywood had ever seen. Everyone was expecting his next move to be predictable, maybe something glamorous or similarly high profile. But Coppola surprised everyone when he decided to make a small, intimate film about a solitary surveillance expert who becomes obsessed with a specific conversation he recorded. That film was The Conversation, and the actor he wanted was Gene Hackman. Now here's something you might not know. Coppola wasn't even sure Hackman would take the role at that time. Hackman was respected, but he wasn't exactly the typical leading man in Hollywood. He was seen as someone capable of delivering powerful, reliable performances, but would audiences rush to theaters to see him in a strange, tense thriller about surveillance? It was a gamble. Coppola himself admitted that at first he wasn't sure. But later, as he revealed recently, something clicked after their first meeting. Hackman understood the role in ways no one else did. Coppola called it an immediate attraction to Hackman's quiet intensity, a power that was almost hidden. Hackman had something that Coppola now admits he's never seen in any other actor before or since. On the first day of filming, Coppola was nervous. Can you imagine why? He had just come off the massive success of The Godfather, and now he was choosing a small, almost experimental film, completely different from what everyone expected. He recalled walking onto the set and seeing Hackman transform into the character, and suddenly feeling reassured. Gene had completely become Harry, the quiet, lonely surveillance expert. Coppola revealed that at first he didn't even recognize Hackman, not physically, but emotionally. Hackman had fully become Harry, a man who spoke softly, avoided eye contact, and was obsessed with everything around him. Coppola said that this was exactly what he had imagined, but seeing it come to life was a completely different experience. and this is where things get interesting. Coppola recently described Hackman as not being the easiest person to work with, not because he was rude or difficult, but because he had immersed himself so deeply into the role. Hackman would often be alone between takes, silent and distant, as if he was carrying the burden of Harry Caul with him. At first, Coppola was concerned if Hackman was okay, wondering if he had pushed himself too far into the character. Coppola shared that one day, he decided to approach Hackman privately just to check in. To his surprise, Hackman smiled faintly and admitted that he had intentionally done so. He needed to feel isolated, alert, and a little uncomfortable in order to authentically portray the paranoia of his character. Coppola respected this deep understanding and realized that Hackman's quiet yet intense acting method was a large part of what made him so exceptional. Coppola is not a director who typically allows actors to improvise freely. He's known for being meticulous about his vision. However, Hackman presented a unique challenge. Coppola recently revealed that, at first, he felt uncomfortable with Hackman's subtle changes to the dialogue, not because he doubted Gene's talent, but because Coppola had a specific rhythm in mind for the scenes. However, the more he watched Hackman at work, the more he realized that Hackman was instinctively seeking something deeper. Coppola described a specific scene, a pivotal moment, when Harry realizes he may have unintentionally put someone's life in danger. Initially, Coppola had written precise lines of dialogue, but Hackman approached the scene differently. Instead of a dramatic response, Gene portrayed the realization through hesitant silence, a quiet physical reaction, a trembling hand, a haunted stare. Coppola vividly recalls that moment and realized that Hackman was conveying something deeper than words could express. Coppola's recent revelations have shed light on Hackman's deep commitment to his role. There were moments, Coppola admits, when he felt Hackman may have gone too deep into the character, blurring the line between actor and role. But every time Coppola tried to pull him back, Gene gently yet firmly resisted. Coppola confesses that he eventually realized this wasn't stubbornness, but Gene's unique process, a way to fully express the anxiety, loneliness, and obsessive caution of Harry Caul. Coppola now reflects fondly on those struggles, acknowledging the artistic courage Hackman displayed, a quality few actors possess. When The Conversation premiered in 1974, critics praised Hackman's performance as extraordinary. But despite Coppola's recent revelations, few knew how emotionally drained Hackman was to reach that point. Coppola vividly remembers the first private screening, sitting anxiously in the back, watching Hackman observe his own performance on the screen. Gene looked uneasy, almost seeing himself as Harry, which deeply unsettled him. Coppola shared that after the screening, Hackman quietly approached him and confessed that seeing himself as Harry scared him. Not because it was a bad performance, on the contrary, but because he had tapped into a part of himself he had never fully explored before. It was a moment of raw honesty and vulnerability that Coppola has never forgotten and has never publicly shared until now. Interestingly, Coppola recently revealed that Hackman initially felt a bit insecure about how his subdued and restrained performance would be received. Hollywood in the 1970s was overflowing with larger-than-life performances, dramatic outbursts, and bold expressions of emotion. Hackman worried that his subtle portrayal of Harry might not resonate. that the audience would miss the emotional depth behind his calm exterior. But Coppola reassured him in a rather prophetic way, saying that one day the audience and critics would consider it one of his greatest performances, precisely because of its quiet strength. Looking back decades later, Coppola openly praised Hackman's genius, even publicly admitting for the first time that he had learned invaluable lessons from directing Hackman. Lessons about subtlety, trusting the actor, and telling the story through silence rather than words. Coppola called their collaboration on The Conversation one of the most important creative experiences of his career, precisely because of the challenges Hackman brought to the table. Coppola humorously mentioned that working with Hackman prepared him to handle great actors later on, not because they were difficult, but because Hackman set extremely high standards for emotional truthfulness. The truth is, without Hackman's unique commitment, The Conversation could have been a forgettable thriller. Instead, it became one of the timeless masterpieces of cinema, and Coppola's recent decision to finally share these personal reflections gives us a rare, fascinating glimpse behind the curtain, revealing the magical tension and absolute intensity that made a film that still haunts audiences today. The personal side. Hackman was not your typical Hollywood actor. Coppola revealed an interesting fact, saying that Hackman was extremely private and somewhat introverted behind the scenes, which contrasts sharply with the dynamic and bold characters he portrayed on screen. Hackman was the type to quietly leave the set when filming wrapped, staying away from the glamorous parties or large gatherings that Hollywood is famous for. Coppola fondly recalled that after shoots, Gene preferred to sit alone with a good book, sometimes simply observing people from a distance. Coppola once asked Hackman why he always seemed distant or somewhat detached from everyone amid the chaos of the film set. Gene simply smiled and said that he enjoyed acting, but everything else about Hollywood, the bright lights, the red carpets, the glamorous parties, was never really the environment in which he thrived. He felt more at peace in quiet and solitude. Coppola recently admitted that it was this quiet confidence that set Hackman apart from other actors. Gene didn't need attention to shine. His talent spoke volumes more than any publicity stunt or attention-grabbing moment ever could. One interesting thing that Coppola shared about Hackman is that, off-camera, Gene had an incredibly sharp sense of humor. Coppola recalls that Gene could quietly make dry, witty remarks that would have everyone in stitches, but he never sought out the laughter. His humor was subtle, clever, and often delivered with a completely serious expression. Coppola described him as a hidden genius because you really had to pay attention, or you'd miss Hackman's jokes. One interesting example during the filming of The Conversation was when Hackman was rehearsing a tense scene. After delivering an emotionally charged monologue, he calmly turned to Coppola and, without changing his serious expression, said, "At least we know I'll never succeed in comedy." Coppola nearly fell out of his chair laughing because Gene's delivery was so perfect and deadpan, it took everyone by surprise. Coppola also openly admitted something surprising about their relationship that few people know. Gene Hackman was ruthlessly honest in his respect for the script and character portrayal. While most actors politely accept the director's vision, Hackman sometimes challenged Coppola, not out of ego, but for genuine artistic integrity. Coppola confessed that at times he felt threatened by these conversations early on because Hackman never sugarcoated his feedback. But in hindsight, he realized that those exchanges enriched Gene's honesty and professionalism, pushing Coppola to always strive to clarify his vision and create stronger, more authentic characters. One particularly interesting moment Coppola revealed was when he first presented the script for The Conversation to Hackman. Gene not only accepted the role, but spent several days analyzing the character, asking Coppola about Harry Call's motivations, fears, and even his costume choices. Initially, Coppola felt defensive, since he was the one who had written the character, but Hackman's questions weren't criticisms, rather explorations to help him understand the character more deeply. Those conversations led Coppola to rewrite crucial scenes, tighten the script, and add emotional depth that wouldn't have existed without Hackman. The revelations didn't stop there. Recently, Francis Ford Coppola also decided to address the long-standing rumors in Hollywood, specifically about Gene Hackman allegedly being difficult or temperamental on set. This topic had always been whispered about, with people wondering if Hackman's quiet nature and desire for privacy ever caused issues behind the scenes. Coppola quickly dismissed the notion that Hackman was difficult in a negative sense. While he did acknowledge that Hackman was strict and sometimes showed frustration if something wasn't right or felt inauthentic, Coppola emphasized that this never came from ego. Instead, Hackman simply cared deeply about his craft, about creating something truly meaningful. According to Coppola, Gene Hackman was never picky. He was just fully dedicated. Coppola shared a specific day on set when Hackman lost his patience for a moment, not out of anger, but due to genuine artistic frustration. They were filming an important scene that required precise expression, and after several takes, Hackman quietly approached Coppola and said he felt he wasn't capturing the essence of what Coppola had envisioned. Coppola was moved by Gene's humility and reassured him that he had complete faith in Hackman's instincts. Coppola recently recalled the defining moment when Hackman's humility made him realize just how rare and valuable Gene's attitude truly was, especially for an actor at the peak of his career. Coppola had always admired Hackman's respect for his fellow actors, regardless of their fame or status on set. Hackman made a concerted effort to support younger, less experienced actors. Coppola described a situation when a relatively unknown supporting actor was struggling to remember his lines during a tense scene and kept apologizing. Coppola recalled how Hackman gently intervened, placing a reassuring hand on the actor's shoulder and quietly comforted him, reminding him that he had all the time he needed. This small gesture deeply moved Coppola. It highlighted Hackman's generous spirit, something that is rarely mentioned in the public eye. Let's not forget the small but fascinating details Coppola revealed about Hackman's working habits. For example, Hackman always arrived on set early, fully prepared, and would quietly study the script on his own even during breaks. Coppola remembered noticing that Gene often jotted down notes in a small notebook. Curious, Coppola once asked about it, and Hackman smiled, explaining that these were little observations about people and the emotions he noticed around him, which he then subtly wove into his performances. Coppola admitted he had never seen any actor do something like this before, emphasizing Hackman's unique approach to capturing the authentic emotions of human beings. Perhaps one of the most memorable revelations from Coppola's recent reflections is how much he still admires and is grateful to Hackman, even decades after the film ended. Coppola openly admitted that Hackman had profoundly shaped him, not only in his career, but also in his personal life. Coppola expressed emotionally how Gene's humility and quiet strength had inspired him throughout his own career. He even said that he had learned more about human nature, compassion, and authenticity from Hackman than from most of the people he had known in Hollywood. So in the end, we can look beyond the legendary films and iconic scenes to something deeper, more personal, authentic, and humane. Thanks to Francis Ford Coppola, we finally know that Gene Hackman is not only a great actor, but also a genuinely kind, thoughtful, and introverted person. Qualities in his real life that have had a profound impact on those around him. These revelations from Coppola have only deepened my admiration for Gene Hackman, and whether you're a longtime fan of his work or simply curious about a Hollywood legend, understanding Hackman through Coppola's perspective will enrich your appreciation for both men. Stories like these remind us of the reason we love cinema in the first place, not just for entertainment, but for the rare glimpses they offer us into the extraordinary lives of remarkable people. Artistic influence and legacy. Right after Coppola shared his insightful and moving thoughts about Gene Hackman, he delved into something even more fascinating: the broader impact of Hackman on the film industry. I'm not joking when I say that Coppola ultimately revealed everything he had quietly observed about Hackman's influence on Hollywood, and frankly, it's far deeper than most people realize. He wasn't the kind of actor who intentionally set out to shape cinema. Hackman did it naturally, simply by becoming exceptionally good at what he did. Coppola described Hackman's style as subtle and authentic, a kind of talent that sneaks up on you, with nothing flashy or forced, yet incredibly powerful. In fact, Coppola admitted that he was always quietly amazed by how Hackman transformed ordinary roles into iconic characters. According to Coppola, Hackman had a unique acting style that helped shape filmmaking during Hollywood's golden age in the 1970s, when cinema became more grounded and less glamorous. In that era, actors like Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, and Jack Nicholson redefined cinema. But Coppola revealed that Hackman was just as important, though less frequently mentioned. Coppola described Hackman as an actor's actor, a quiet mentor with a far-reaching influence, who didn't need to make bold proclamations to leave his mark. This is something truly surprising, as Coppola revealed that many actors we now consider legends privately admired Hackman, though these praises were never publicly voiced. Coppola recently shared a previously unknown story about a young Al Pacino, just starting out with The Godfather, who approached Coppola privately after watching Hackman in the conversation. Pacino was genuinely captivated and asked Coppola how Hackman could manage to be so authentic on screen. Coppola smiled as he recalled and told Pacino that the secret was quite simple. Hackman didn't pretend, he just lived in the moment. Pacino quietly admitted that Hackman's approach had a profound impact on his future performances, particularly in films like Dog Day Afternoon. And Pacino was not alone. Coppola also remembered similar moments with other well-known actors who had quietly expressed their admiration for Hackman's subtle yet powerful performances. Dustin Hoffman once shared with Coppola that Hackman's portrayal of Harry had changed the way he viewed character development. Hoffman admired Hackman's confidence in trusting silence, and Coppola explained that Hackman had mastered the art of letting silence speak louder than words. This led Coppola to discuss why Hackman never received the widespread recognition from Hollywood that contemporaries like Robert De Niro or Jack Nicholson did. Coppola openly admitted his disappointment about this, stating that Hackman's versatility was unmatched. He even went so far as to say that Hackman could convincingly take on any role, from a quiet boss to a charismatic leader with unparalleled realism. However, Hollywood often overlooked Hackman in favor of flashier actors. Coppola believes that one of the reasons Hackman didn't gain more attention is because he never sought fame. He wasn't interested in popularity or status. Hackman focused solely on storytelling. Coppola shares that Hackman turned down many famous roles which later became career-defining performances for other stars. A notable example Coppola reveals is that Hackman quietly declined the role of Hannibal Lecter before it went to Anthony Hopkins. Coppola emphasizes that Hackman simply didn't feel comfortable with the role and quietly walked away, never publicly mentioning it. Not only praising Hackman's acting, Coppola also shared his views on Hackman's approach to storytelling, which had a profound impact on his own directing style. Coppola admits that Hackman taught him more about capturing genuine human emotion than any film school could. Even throughout his career, Coppola has used Hackman as a benchmark, comparing the performances of young actors to the honesty and naturalness that Hackman always brought to the screen. Another fascinating story Coppola shared was a moment on set when Hackman disagreed with a cinematographer's lighting choice. Hackman approached Coppola respectfully and said that the lighting seemed unrealistic and distracting. Coppola was initially surprised, as very few actors question technical aspects. But Hackman explained that if the lighting wasn't realistic, the audience would lose emotional connection. Coppola decided to trust Hackman's instincts and changed the lighting, eventually realizing that Hackman was right. This demonstrated Hackman's deep understanding of the entire filmmaking process, not just acting. Coppola also shared about Hackman's influence on young filmmakers like Steven Spielberg. Coppola recalled that Spielberg frequently visited the set of The Conversation and observed Hackman. Spielberg admitted that watching Hackman shaped the way he approached storytelling, particularly in creating believable, relatable characters. Coppola emphasized that this was a clear example of Hackman's subtle yet profound influence, not only in his own films, but also in how Hollywood portrayed complex characters. Before Hackman, many lead characters in Hollywood were often straightforward heroes or simple villains, lacking emotional depth. However, Hackman, through films like The French Connection and The Conversation, revolutionized how Hollywood approached realism. Coppola shared that Hackman's ability to portray complex characters not only shaped performances in cinema, but also paved the way for more emotionally nuanced characters, especially on today's television and streaming platforms. Coppola even humorously admitted that today's audiences might not realize that many of their favorite characters, with the emotional depth they bring, actually stem from Hackman's groundbreaking performances. Coppola also took some time to explain why Hackman's legacy isn't as publicly acknowledged as that of other great actors. According to Coppola, part of the reason is that Hackman never sought attention or praise. He simply loved the craft and created memorable performances. Coppola openly admitted that Hackman's humility shaped his own perspective on success and authenticity in the industry. Coppola shared a moment when he met Hackman at a quiet cafe in San Francisco, where Hackman confessed that he intentionally distanced himself from Hollywood to protect his creative spirit. This moment resonated deeply with Coppola, making him realize that Hackman's humility and self-awareness were rare in Hollywood, an industry notorious for its egos. Coppola shared that after working with Hackman, he learned to trust actors more, to listen carefully, and to respect their instincts. Coppola admitted that whenever he faced challenges in his career, he would ask himself how Hackman would handle the situation, and that question helped him overcome obstacles in his work. Ultimately, Coppola's recent decision to share these very private stories about Hackman has provided invaluable insight into his true appreciation for Hackman's talent and legacy. His humility, integrity, and lasting influence have forever changed Hollywood. Coppola acknowledges that Hollywood often overlooks actors like Hackman because they shy away from the spotlight, but their silent impact is unparalleled. These reflections by Coppola are not only about sharing untold Hollywood stories, but also a reminder that true greatness doesn't always come from fame or public recognition, but from the quiet influence each person leaves behind. And in Coppola's eyes, Hackman has left an extraordinary legacy, built on humility, integrity, and true artistry. If you find the stories about Gene Hackman and his profound influence on Hollywood fascinating, don't forget to leave a comment below. What do you think about Hackman's humility and quiet impact on the film industry? Has Hollywood truly given legends like him the recognition they deserve? Share your thoughts and be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more captivating stories. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.